welcome to What's
Yeah.
Word Podcast. Woo. Here we are. Welcome. Good evening, one and all. We want to say, welcome to What's the Word. My name's Warner. His name is
Eamon. I don't know. We introduced ourselves now. That's cool. That's new. I'm Eamon.
I know. I just did it on the fly. What can I say?
Yeah, nice.
Eamon, as always, every week. How are you guys doing, first of all? You guys watching? We like to say hi to you guys. Welcome if this is your first time. And we want to say comment below as well. We want to interact with people. We don't just want this to be something that we just do to chat to ourselves, because otherwise we wouldn't need to stream it. So get involved. If you enjoy what is being said, comment something. Or if you have a question for us or our guest, anywhere in between, feel free, comment, get involved. We love all that kind of stuff. So I mean, let people know, how's your week been?
Well, usually, as everyone knows, my week's a solid 10 out of 10. But,
10 out of 10.
But this week, it's a 9 out of 10.
Ooh, what happened?
I'll tell you why. It was a cold morning on a Thursday, I think it was. And I got up, just sort of pottering around, doing my thing. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go on my phone while the kettle's boiling, and I'm going to go play some Candy Crush. And I went on, and all my sort of stuff had been deleted.
Ooh,
and it reverted me back to level 1. And if you know, I was on like 3,100 and something, like 6-7 years in the making, and it's all gone. Rest in peace.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not entirely sure what to say. If you listened a couple of weeks ago, you will know that Eamon did share about his passion for Candy Crush, which I was unaware of. I guess now you get to experience it all over again if that's something that you decide you want to do.
I've officially, I thought about, complaining to Candy Crush and try and get all my stuff back or whatever. And I thought, you know what, leave it, let it die. I had a good run.
Maybe they just said, you know what, I'm just gonna help it. Let me help a brother out. Let me help Eamon. I'm just gonna wipe it all away. You know what I mean?
But the annoying thing is now, because I was battling with my cousin on what level we were on, and now she is just gonna fly ahead. But it doesn't matter. It's done. It's done.
Yeah.
Apart from that, it was a solid 10 out of 10 week. But that just
10 out of 10.
Brought it down to a 9, but it's all right.
That's you? Okay. 9 out of 10 is still a good week.
Yeah, still a solid week. Go on, tell the people
it's
about your week.
It's been a good week for me. Been a good week. Our new camera with the church finally arrived, which is super exciting because it's such a clean camera, and I got to test it out. Got to use it in a couple of things. So yeah, that was like an exciting thing to get to play around with. Don't really know what else happened this week. Oh, my Lakers. I'm a big basketball fan. I love the NBA, and I'm a faithful Lakers fan because I got into basketball like 3 years ago, I think, when the Lakers were basically the worst team in the league. And it was dark days. It was pretty dark. I was like, why did I pick this team? I should have done a bit more research. I was like, it could be years till they're good again. But I was like, you know what? I like the color. I like the vibe.
Yeah.
And now, we're getting close to winning the championship. So I'm excited.
Close.
What can I say?
There yet, But that's what I mean.
No, we're not there yet.
NBA's kicking off in full force. Playoffs. NFL is back this week.
NFL is back. Premier League is back.
What more?
There's a lot. It's a good time to be a sports fan. And also, I'm very impressed with, coronavirus is an obvious thing. But a lot of the big sports things have done a great job at keeping, infections down, which fair play.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have to work hard. So come on, Oldham, you can do it.
Stop talking about Oldham.
No. So do you wanna take us through cool cue of the week?
Cool cue of the week. This is a good one. I thought about this one, and it's this: if you were going into witness protection and you had to pick your own name, what name would it be? So Warner, tell the people. If you got into witness protection, what name would you pick?
All right, I have to go first.
You have to go first. I got the question. This is you go first.
All right, I feel at first I thought, let me go for something proper, like exotic and like cool. But then I realized I'm in witness protection, so I need to be like, I need to be the least memorable ever, and so maybe like probably, John Doe would be, Oh no, maybe that's too memorable because no, I'll just go with John Moffat. Do you have to think of the last name as well?
Well, yeah,
because I feel like John is common enough.
Yeah, because John, fair play. But see, I had the same thought. By the same thought, because my name obviously is Eamon Maloney. So when you say that, when like you're in somewhere and you go, "What's your name?" You go, "Eamon Maloney." They're always like, people that. And it's I know it's a bit tedious. E-A-O-N-N, and they're like that one N, two N, or one N, two M. Do you know what I mean? That all confusion. So just something simple. Like, I was going to just pick John Smith. Do you know what I mean?
Oh
just
yeah, John
clean,
Smith.
simple. Like say it, everyone knows it, everyone remembers it. People can write it down. Simple, under the radar, low key.
Under the radar. So we've got two Johns, basically, innit? That's what we're saying.
John and John, yeah.
Hopefully we won't be on the same neighborhood, otherwise they'll figure out pretty quickly. We've got one person saying Penelope, so going from Johanna to Penelope. That's pretty good.
Not bad now.
All right, you're not impressed. Well, okay.
It reminds me of Thunderbirds.
Wow, that is very, very old school reference.
Yeah,
Thunderbirds. Yeah, that old school puppetry where you can see like the strings and stuff still.
Kind of creepy, but yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's a good time for us to bring our guest on.
Yes.
Would you like to do the introductory honors?
So the guest, very special one. He's always like, every time I play Call of Duty, he's always like, when you get me on the podcast. He's been wanting to go on the podcast for a long, long time. It's the man. It's like a scene. It's the man, the myth, the legend. And it's James Carr.
Hey!
Wow, what an intro, guys! What an intro! Really, good job there, Eamon. That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought he really brought out the best of you. So.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I take an interest in Eamon. Like, I love him to pieces. So I know it's a big part of his life. So I want to, encourage the podcast. And I always watch. I watch every week. You guys have got some really good guests on, and it's been lovely seeing the development.
Which one's been your favourite podcast since you watch every week?
I really enjoyed when you got Dave Shutt in. Dave Shutt was fantastic. I'm a big lover of Covenant College, and it's great. Obviously, when you get Ezekiel, is great as well. My brother was all right and stuff. So you've had a good. I'm not offended at all that you picked him first, but.
Well,
but no, I think it's good. I think you've had a good roster of people. So let it go.
So. Gonna throw the question to you. If you were going into witness protection and you had to pick your own name, what name would it be?
Well, no, I don't know if you met Russ and Rihanna, but they've got a great last name, Daly. So I'd probably go for like Reggie Daly or like Reginald Daly.
Reginald.
Yeah, so I'd probably go Reginald Daly. A little bit mysterious. Reggie Daly.
I mean, that would be a long name tag. If you had to go to a conference and they were like, write a name down. Would you always be Reginald, or would you shorten it to Reggie?
Probably Reggie. Probably like Reggie. Yeah, probably Reggie D.
Wow, that's
be right.
Reggie D.
Reginald.
Reggie D.
I feel like Reggie D is like your DJ SoundCloud name.
I've got, name. Yeah.
Up and coming.
Thanks.
So let's get into it. For the people watching. Who watching live, watching later, they may not know who you are, or they may not know everything. So give us a brief overview of James Carr's life. What's your family background like?
So a brief overview of my life I would say is one that's been blessed. I've been a Christian for a long portion of my life. I got brought to church when I was younger. I decided to become a Christian at sort of 15. So for me, becoming a Christian at such an early age, and one of my characteristics is when I make a decision, I try my best to stick with it. as much as I can. So I've just loved being a Christian. I've sort of always been that sort of steady, going to church, loved youth groups, loved being part of a youth group. I've loved being a youth helper and then a youth leader. That's been a massive part of my growth and development and my childhood. And I owe a lot of my my current life and my future to some great youth leaders that I've had at King's Church in Manchester and then sort of leading the youth in Cardiff. Like, it's been great sort of serving God in this season. So for me, like, get involved in the youth group. So if you're a teenager out there, or if you're a child or a young person, or even a student that's moving to university, getting involved with youth has changed my life, and it sort of helped me change other people's lives as well.
And what's crazy is I didn't realize this. But
don't make me feel
James is...
Don't make me feel... Go on, I know what you're going to say. Carry on.
So I found out that James was my wife's youth leader.
Yeah.
And like, I'd known James really well for a solid 2-3 years.
Yeah.
And then, we were dating, started going out, and she was like, "Oh, I know James." I was like, "How on earth do you know James?" Like, when you were in Cardiff, I was like, "You would have been like a kid." She was like, "Yeah, he was my youth leader." I was like,
Wow.
"Right, okay."
Yeah. So like, I just want to shout out Esther Coggins because basically I ended up leading youth when I went to university in Cardiff, and a lovely couple, Justin and Sarah Alley, they were running the youth, and then God called them to America. And they needed someone to fill in the gap, and I was very passionate about young people, and I had been involved in youth groups for such a long time that they asked me to lead youth at 20 in the church with Esther Coggins, and that was before Josh Jones and Laura Jones took it on to the next degree later on. But I got to lead youth then, and it was a great experience. So yeah, I remember Mercy. I'm good friends with her dad, Derek. I know Derek very well. He's an absolute legend. But yeah, I met Mercy when she was 12, so she's grown a little bit since.
Yeah. Oh, only slightly.
No, she's hit a couple of inches, so it's good.
Yeah. So you're in Cardiff, and then what's next?
Oh, so for me, basically, I love God, and I'm a big believer in God's got a plan for every little detail. So I was really grateful that God called me to go to Cardiff, and I went there, and it was a great 4 years of my life. I basically got embedded in church straight away because I knew friends from the church there, and I got involved as much as I could. I got to know families, which is the best thing when you're a student and you join a church. The best thing you can do is get to know a couple in the church, and sort of just try and meet as many people as you can and invest yourself in there and find an area to serve in. So I just decided youth because I love working with young people, and it was just a great season of my life, really, where I got to spend time with guys at the same age as me, but also just have an opportunity to learn from some people your David Ellis's, your Rob and Annie Sherwin's, just having time speaking to really quality people with a great foundation and great theology, and just learning from them and having that attitude of I want to learn as much as I can. And it was a great opportunity to grow up there as well, leaving home for the first time and trying to manage myself. And, it was a big, steep learning curve, but I really enjoyed it. And there's a lot of grace and a lot of funny stories. But I was really blessed that I managed to do Cardiff. And in Cardiff, that's when I did Covenant College, which was fantastic. And it changed my life, Covenant College. It's the best, one of the best things that I've ever done. Just to give me a great foundation for my walk with Jesus, and it made me want to go for an adventure for Christ, and I loved Cardiff, and I loved that year. I got to learn so much, so I really encourage any student or anyone who's just looking to change their life. Covenant College is the best place really for them. So yeah.
And I think Cardiff is the last place where you dyed your hair an extravagant color.
The thing is, you've made that sound like that's a current event. I do that quite a lot. I've dyed my hair once in my lifetime, and that was in Cardiff. I finished my degree, and most people when they finish their degree, they celebrate by going out with their friends, or maybe getting a tattoo or something. But I thought I'd never dyed my hair, so I dyed it blue. And funnily enough, it suited me. I got a lot of compliments.
No, it didn't.
The Aubrey thought it was lovely. It's just, it just brought out my eyes.
Yeah, there we go.
and the thing is, I like to be memorable. So, you know, guys in Cardiff are reminded of a guy who, you know, very passionate for Jesus, but also
Do you know what I mean?
who died there, and, you know, God loves people who've died there as well.
Yeah, it's true. He's not wrong there.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
tell us a bit about, you know, James meeting Jesus and that process. You talked a little bit about it, but take us in. How did that become a real decision, and like you've said, it's impacted the rest of your life then?
So for me, like growing up in church, it's always fantastic being around people, especially kids work. Kids work was great for me. But really for me, it was when I got baptized at like 12, 13. And for me, baptism was incredible. Well, the water was cold, so no, I can't forget it. And that's King's Church, you know. I think they've got a heater now, which is great. Yeah, I always think it's better to baptize them in cold water just so you don't forget it.
You at least get the shock of the temperature.
You get the shock of the temperature and the fact that, you know, you've changed and transformed. But for me, like, baptism is such an important point of the cutting off of my old life. So I always refer back to, you know, yes, I prayed a prayer when I was younger and it was fantastic, but baptism in water, when I fully came out of the water. In fact, I got double dunked. My mum saw my toe was out when I got baptized the first time. So I thought I was all the way down, but yeah, we believe in full submersion. So
can't have any Achilles heels.
No Achilles heels. So I was properly submerged the second time around. So for me, that was fantastic. And then also being part of a youth group, I decided, so my parents moved to a different church, and I then had to get to church myself. And that was the biggest thing for me. That's really defined me of being like 15, 16 and getting a tram to church, because it meant that it took me like 30 minutes and they had a service at 11:30, which meant I could get there on time. And for me, it was then taking ownership of my faith at that early age. A lot of people encounter that choice when they go to university. But for me, it was at 15, and that sort of shaped my whole life, because at that age, I was like, I can stay in bed or I can get up and get myself to church. And I did that, and that just changed my life. So, you know, decisions that 15-year-olds make have massive impacts for the rest of their life. And there's grace and there's love, but it was just a massive thing for me. And God's blessed me ever since. So, yeah, I'm really, really glad that was a great season of my life in Manchester. And I'm really grateful for Rachel and Judah and for Tony Campbell and people like that for putting on a good youth group. And I think churches should value youth groups, because, you know, youth are such an important part of a church community, and they are always, you know, you have a hand on people's lives, and it's always been great being involved with youth, because I see people grow and change, and, like, you know, even, you know, with the older youth, seeing them grow up, and, you know, seeing Cardiff youth, like, people getting married, and, you know, it's just incredible. Like, I'm really blessed to be involved in youth. So if you're thinking about an area to serve, youth is always a fantastic one, especially for students. So
I think especially a lot of my close friends who are close Christian friends who are continuing going on in the Lord, that were raised in a Christian household. Youth was the time period where things really got nailed, and even if there was a bit of a wobble, because of what had happened at that youth foundation stage, they came through that. And people often say, if you can get through uni still with your faith, you'll basically be fine in life, unless something, you know, and whatever you get hit by, if you pass uni, you'll probably be okay. And I think a lot of that comes from that age of like 14, 15, 16, where, you know, you're young and you get to frame all these things. Because like you're saying, it for a lot of people, it is that uni age, and it can be really tough if you haven't already embedded that. So it's awesome to hear that for you, as, you know, 15 years old, getting a half an hour tram to a church meeting.
Manchester,
How would some of your some of your school friends react to that? Like, were they cool with you being a Christian? Were they like, James, why are you wasting your time?
It's funny, because like I've had like high school friends which were lovely, but we sort of just coexisted in high school. Like, I just played football, I kept my head down, like I didn't do much sort of like, they knew I was a Christian, but it didn't matter to them, because we just like played a bit of football and it was a good laugh, and it wasn't a massive divisive issue. It was more when I moved to college and I was like 18, 19, and it was more like a bit of a shock to some people that I wouldn't want to, you know, go to parties or massive night outs, or if I would go to a party, like, you know, having like a drink limit, or, you know, going home a bit earlier. It was sort of just, you sort of have that opportunity to feel like, you know, is this what I'm living for? And like, you know, there's grace and there's love, and that's what, as a Christian community, we need to help support every single person. But there's also an opportunity for you to talk to other people about how you feel, and I think it was discipleship. So, you know, even though I was in college, I still had people that I could talk to in youth or even in Kings to just, you know, tell them how I'm feeling, and it was all about communication, really. I think if you've got someone that you trust and disciple, and a youth leader is the first person that sort of disciples you, and I love youth leaders because often they're just big kids themselves, and it's just a massive responsibility. So, like, you know, it's always through that level of discipleship. But yeah, they took it well. A lot of them don't understand it because they're just like, oh wait, you're not dating, or like, you know, you don't want to like go out with these girls, or you don't like, and it's just then listening to what you're trying to say and your beliefs, and sometimes they'll accept it, sometimes they don't care. But for me, yeah, I was sticking with it, and yeah, just living in faith and not being afraid of what they think. Because I think if you're going to sin or if you're going to make a mistake, often it can be fear that leads you to it. You know, I'm worried. I want to be cool. I want to be accepted. I've never really been cool, but I'm winning. I don't mind. Yeah, I'm just sort of like.
Take us into, what did these discipleship relationships look like? So obviously we know that Tony was, especially when around the age you're talking about, yeah, that was like the core one. So when you say discipleship and, you know, you discipled me, like, what did that look like in real life situations?
Well, I think for me, discipleship looks like actually listening to someone and applying what they say. Like you can go around the whole room in a church and ask someone's opinion on what you think you should do. You know, what do you think how should I live my life? What should I be reading in the Bible? How can I start this challenge? But discipleship is actually applying that individual that you trust and being accountable to them. So for Tony, you know, reading the Bible, he'd be like, have you read the Bible? And that's a question I ask now everyone when I'm sort of discipling people or just chatting to them. And if I hadn't read the Bible, he'd want to know what I was reading, and I'd become accountable to him. So, you know, I would then, if I ever saw Tony, I'd probably just, you know, quickly read a verse just in case he'd ask me a question, just so that I had something. So, you know, it was coming from that relationship of, you know, he was holding me accountable. So in any situation, and it was always someone that I could rely on and trust, which helped me in other relationships. So when I started discipling other people, I would assume that, you know, if they needed help, they'd talk to me about it. But also it was a privilege. It's a privilege to disciple people, and it's the best thing that you can do. Like, I love preaching the gospel, but seeing a young individual grow and develop in the word and in maturity is fantastic to watch. And, you know, it's been really blessed, you know, to see even like you guys coming through and, you know, doing what God's called you to do. It's just a massive blessing because, you know, we all succeed together. It's great to see you go from strength to strength, and, you know, we're part of one family, so everyone's winning. But yeah, I think with Tony, it was just listening to him and applying what he said. Yeah, that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Great. So you're in Cardiff. You've finished uni, you graduated. Where does Cove Call come into play? And obviously you're no longer in Cardiff. So what was that journey of not being in Cardiff?
I think for me, you've got to go where God calls you to go, and to do it under authority. I don't know if those are big phrases, and, you know, for me, it's just listening and being aware of what God wants to do in your life, and then allowing people to confirm it. So because Tony discipled me well, and I've been discipling others, I know what discipleship looks like. So when I was in Cardiff, you know, I had people like James Aubrey and Roger Aubrey discipling me, which I'm really grateful for and really blessed for. You know, I think James has got extra grey hairs because, you know, I was, you know, really fun in Cardiff. But for me, I was accountable to them. So when I wanted to go somewhere or do something, I would, you know, I'd ask their opinion on what they thought, and I wouldn't ask anybody else's. I would just go to them. You know, I've nearly moved to places which God hadn't called me. You know, I thought I wanted to move to one specific town and city after Bible school because I thought it was a good idea. And Roger said to me, you know, it's just a good idea. This isn't where God's calling you to be. And I had a choice then, even though I wanted to move there, even though there was like an internship and there was a job there for me. And I'd been rejected from Subway after Bible school. So, you know,
I feel like that almost happens to everyone.
Yeah, I was in a moment where, you know, I could have made it happen for myself, but I decided to choose to, you know, submit to the word of God, which was don't move here because it's a good idea. And I'm really blessed for that, because I only want to move where God's calling me to move. And it's a really important thing. Like when you're moving somewhere, you can change a whole church, you can change a whole city, like just simply because you're choosing to serve God. So for me, it was allowing them to say, don't do this and do this. Obviously, you know, I've got my own heart, my own desires, and, you know, I wouldn't inquire on them on what I can have for dinner, or what film I'm going to watch. But if I was going to, you know, have a major decision, I would always seek good counsel from people that I trusted. So for Roger, like to move to Oldham after Cardiff, I really believed God had spoken to me. And I went to Roger and I spoke to him, and, you know, he believed that God had spoken to Ezekiel, who confirmed me moving to Oldham. So I only moved because they agreed that it was the right thing for me. But also when I arrive in Oldham, it will depend. If God had called me, then it goes well or it doesn't go well. So it's sort of then also knowing that when I arrive there, like for it to be God, it has to go from one degree of glory to the next. And it went well. It went well. But again, for me, it was very much just like, if Roger at that moment in my life had said, you know, don't go, I wouldn't have gone.
Yeah.
And that I would have just listened to him. And for me, then it would have, you know, taken that ownership off me, and he's someone that's discipling me, and he would take responsibility for that decision. But something better would have come up. But because it was confirmed by Ezekiel and by Roger and even myself, by even suggesting this is where I believe I need to go, that's when I went. And, you know, I arrived in Oldham, the fantastic town that it is. And it was a massive blessing. It was a really important part of my life, Oldham, and I really enjoyed it because I learned a lot from being there. And yeah, God really used me and shaped me up there, and it was just a fantastic opportunity. So I'd encourage you, like, you know, if you're listening to this and, you know, you're seeking that next step, just pray, but also consult your leaders. Like, they want the best for you, and, you know, they'll wait on God for you as well. But just be aware that if they don't think it's the right thing, they'll tell you not to go. And it's just been, and that was a massive blessing for me. So, and
what I love is that you had to choose between a good idea and God's idea, and no one knew what God's idea was for you. No. But they knew that the good idea wasn't God's idea; it was just a good idea.
Yeah,
and exactly, I think sometimes that can be where the challenge is of, like, am I really going to submit to God? Because this is a pretty good idea. Like, I know that if I go there, I'll do well. Maybe I'll kick off, make some money, whatever it is. And you may have no idea what God actually wants you to do, but it becomes clear that it's not the good idea. And that's where it really becomes, where who's going to be first in your life, because you've got to pick between God or a really good idea.
Yeah. And even getting a job, like Eamon, your mum, like Johanna, she was integral in me getting a job there. Like she believed that it was the right thing for me to move as well, and she was in faith, and she spoke to her work, and then I got a job out of nothing, and it was in the field that I wanted to move in. So God can use individuals in the church to sort of open that way, and we knew it was the right thing for me. I knew it in my heart because I had peace about it, but also because, you know, God used Johanna to get me into the work, especially in education, which I really believed God had called me to at that time. So, yeah, it was fantastic, especially because you guys needed a youth leader as well. With you guys, with you running around, I don't know how old you were there even, but, you know, definitely fun to be there and to run that youth group.
Yeah. So you moved to Oldham, getting settled. And then you decide, I'm gonna, I think you were doing some extra study.
Yeah.
What was that? Talk to us about the process of you deciding that.
Well, I think
and where you were gonna study.
So God told me to become a teacher, and that came through me wanting to serve God. So I was very much speaking to the leaders of Cardiff Church, and I spoke to one of the apostles that we're linked to, and I was very much just like, I want to serve God and I want to serve you. What can I do? And at that point, I was just come straight out of uni, straight out of Bible school, quite fresh. And for you to be part of a church and to be part of church leadership, it's important for you to get a job and for you to work in the world outside of church. And we talked and we discussed, and I really believe God calling me to be a teacher. So for me, that was the word of God, and I had it confirmed by other leaders and other preachers. And I really needed to become a teacher. And at the time in Oldham, Johanna helped me get a job as a teaching assistant. So that's like almost the word of God. So I was a teaching assistant for a couple of years, and it sort of helped me to see what actually teaching's about. And I then applied for a course, and the course was teacher training, which obviously was what God had in store for me. And that was in a church that was related to us. And I really thought that was the right thing for me to do. It was me making sure that I tried to achieve what God had called me to do. It was a great idea. But the year that I wanted to go away to the related church from Oldham was the year that a lot of you guys decided to go to Bible school. So I think we had like Juana, my brother, like a good chunk of the guys decided that they went off to get trained. And Ezekiel asked me to delay my studies for a year. And that was big for me. That was really big, because I could have moved to a different church for that year, and I could have, gotten one step closer to achieving my dream of being a primary school teacher. But I really believed that God had called me to Oldham, and God hadn't told me necessarily to move there and to do that specifically. So I had another choice to make. And the best thing about being a Christian is you get to choose. You get to choose, am I going to do what God's called me to do, or am I going to do what I think's best? I decided that I needed to be part of Oldham Church and to support them during this season of growth. And there was leadership changes within Oldham at the time, and there's different people going through different things. And for me, like, I needed to bless Ezekiel and to support Ezekiel in the church there. So I was man enough to say, no, I'm gonna delay my studies to the place. But Ezekiel was fantastic, because he was like, why aren't you trying to study in Oldham? Why aren't you studying in Manchester? And I didn't have the grades. I didn't have the grades to do the teacher training at Manchester Uni in Manchester. And I wasn't there. But there
wasn't even an algorithm back then.
No algorithm. Just didn't have the grades. But the year after, they dropped the bar. Thank you for dropping that bar. So I got to pick. I got to either choose to go off to a different place or to stay in Oldham. And I listened to God, I listened to the guys in leadership, and I made a decision to stay in Oldham. And again, great decision. And it meant that I could do my teacher training and still be part of the church in Oldham, still live in Oldham, and still be where God's called me to be. So I learned then and there that, to not be afraid, to not make decisions out of, how can I make this happen for myself? Or should I move for a job? Or should I move for further education? I decided to stay, and God opened the door for me the year after, which was great, because it meant that, some of the other guys and the other guys in the church could go off and, spend a year at Bible college and come back even stronger. So yeah, like I think your brother was doing the academy as well.
Yeah, we had. I think there were 4 of us all together.
Yeah, 4 of you. Yeah. So I just had to help Ezekiel and just support him in what he was doing. And while I was in Oldham, I made it my dream and my goal to help Ezekiel achieve what God had given him for and the vision for the church there. And we moved buildings during that season. Like God blessed us with £1 million, and it's like God's done such a fantastic job. I remember helping him like concrete some steps outside the building. It was great. He's doing a great job, and a massive blessing to you guys in Oldham. So it was a fantastic season of my life being there, especially because I got to stay in Oldham and be a teacher in Oldham, and achieve what God had called me to in Oldham, which was and I never planned to leave really.
But we know that you are currently. We know that you're currently not living in Oldham. So
no. Again, God's got a plan. So for me, again, the leadership from our churches, our related churches, a guy had a dream about me and was like, "Oh, God's calling you out of Oldham, and He's calling you to build a relationship with Southport and to move to Lancaster." And it was only through like that dream that I had that, you know, I really believed that God was calling me somewhere else. And I only ever move wherever God's calling me to go. And because it was like the apostle that's connected to us, that was like, "Oh, God's calling you out." And I had peace in my heart. So I made that decision. And I'm currently, you know, in Lancaster supporting the brothers and sisters here and helping the church grow. And, you know, a lot of the lessons that I learned in Oldham, I'm applying here, and I'm still doing like teaching work. I'm still working 5 days as a teacher and a couple of days working for church. But you know, it's just really just enjoying the season that I'm in, really, and helping Chris Strawn, who's a fantastic elder and leader in the church in Lancaster, and just, you know, helping people and applying what I'm learning. So even though you might be like, "Oh, I'm staying here," sometimes God's just like, "You need to leave, go help somewhere else."
But also in that period, you met your amazing wife.
Yep.
In that period of being in Oldham, getting to Lancaster, you met your wife, got engaged, got married.
Yep.
You're now there. And special announcement, we'll be having both of them on together in the coming weeks.
Yeah.
To chat about some of the awesome stuff that they are doing in Lancaster, because they're doing some amazing things there. And also get to know Hannah to you guys. Hopefully we'll be able to get her on for her own thing as well.
Yeah, she does a great job.
Yeah, she's awesome. Yeah. So, how did you find the actual process? Because I know you said that you just went from Oldham to Lancaster, but for people who may not know we don't need to go into the ins and outs.
No,
but that was like a year. That was a year-long process. So when James is talking about, you know, he heard God because someone gave him a word, and then he says, and then he moved. What he's actually, that sounds like it having, you know, he heard it yesterday, he moved a month later. There was a long process with all these. So talk a bit about the process in as vague a way as possible, I guess.
The process of moving from Oldham to Lancaster was different from me moving from Cardiff to Oldham. So from Cardiff to Oldham, it was very much just like I believed that it was where God was calling me to go, and I heard it myself, and Ezekiel heard it. So it was more of like we were coming together and saying, you know, this is what we believe God's called us to do. And you know, then speaking to the leader of the church that I was part of, and then as sort of all agreeing that, you know, we believe James is going to go to Oldham, and we're going to see what happens when he gets there. That's one of the ways. With me moving to Lancaster, it was completely different in the sense that, you know, the apostle that we were connected to believed that he had a dream about me specifically moving. And then me going to him and saying, "Well, I'm willing to go wherever you want me to go." Like at that point, he could have sent me to anywhere in the country. And my wife is fantastic, and she like loves God just as much as I love God. And you know, we were both really willing to go wherever God was calling us to go, but also to stay where God was calling us to stay. Like it's not necessarily looking for what's the next big thing. It was very, you know, Hannah was prepared to move to Oldham. We were, you know, making preparations. This word comes. And then I think originally that I'm moving to Southport because that's where she's from. And then it turns out that I'm moving to Lancaster. And it's a whole year. It's a whole year worth of, you know, of God speaking, of me going. But the best thing that I did, and the most dangerous thing you can do, is go and speaking to like an apostle that you're connected to and saying, "I'm willing to go and do whatever God's called me to go. And you can send me wherever you want." And, you know, it was the best decision I made because I found myself slap bang where God needed me to be, which was in Lancaster. And, you know, I've supported Oldham, and there's some fantastic people in Oldham. You know, you've got great life group leaders. You've got great people there, like, you know, Hannah, Wana, like Combe, Eamon. You've got great people. My brother, like, you know, it's amazing. You've got great guys. But for me, like, God just said, "No, I need you to be somewhere else." And it was just a different part of the journey. So it took a whole year. I was a full-time teacher. I was traveling to Leicester. I was traveling to Southport, and you know, it was a difficult one, but you know, it's one that I'm really grateful for. God was fantastic in sort of keeping me during that year. Like it was a busy year, and I was sort of getting like, you know, God was pulling me out slowly but surely from Oldham. But yeah, so one of them was, I really believe this is the right thing for me. The second one was completely left field. I was very planted in Oldham, very happy in Oldham, and then God was like, no, I need you in Lancaster. So that's the sort of summary of my year, really. A lot of tears, a lot of changes, especially for Hannah moving from her first, like, well, we can talk to her later, but yeah, like when Hannah moved, it was just massive for us. But it's an adventure. Like being a Christian, it's an adventure. So yeah, happy days.
And what I love about that is that regardless of the specific situation, the same principle like pulled you through, which was I'm in relationship with these people who are looking after my life. Like that's what leaders do basically, is they look after your life, they go to God for you about your life, and they care about your life. And so you said, I trust that you care about my life enough that what you're saying to me is a good thing. Even if I'm really settled in Oldham, or even if I've got this great opportunity to be an intern somewhere, actually, what you're saying to me is better than what I think. Even for me watching, because I watched mainly from when you were in Oldham, I watched you in those processes of like trying to decide these things and the way you did it. And even I think one of the amazing things about being in relationship with people is that you get to benefit from what they're going through. Definitely, so I benefited from seeing you having to go through those situations and coming out and seeing, the amazing blessings that you've had time after time, and knowing that the best way to make a decision is whatever God wants you to do. And you can trust your leaders in what that decision is, which I think can be a massive thing for people. You know, a lot of times people don't want to fully trust their leaders specifically. Or, there can be a lot of contention of like, my leaders told me this, but I'm going to do this because this is a great idea, and all these kind of things.
I think for me, you've got to be friends. So like for me, like I was friends with the people that were discipling me. So I spent time with them, when I was in Oldham, Ezekiel kindly discipled me, and, we went out for coffee, we'd talk, we'd eat, we'd go to Nando's. Like it was like, all these discussions, all this time, it's about relationship. And, I'm a lot, if someone is going to speak into my life, I need to know them. And there were times in my life where people would tell me to do something, and they might seem that they were like wanting the best for me, but it's about knowing, what am I going to live my life on, and how I'm going to serve God and just seek first the kingdom and what that looks like. So, and also not being I want to leave or I want to stay. It's, I want to do what God's called me to do. Let the leader of the church or this person who's discipling me have some input into that. Because you don't know everything. And I've sort of just, had an open hand in the sense of, well, God, if you want to pick me up and move me, you can. But also, if I'm living somewhere, I need to live all in this moment. And, Oldham was a great opportunity and a great training ground. And it wasn't always easy, but, I had to just trust my friend and my leader, and also trust in God. You got the story of Joseph. Joseph goes through massive tribulations and ups and downs, but at the end of the day, God put him at the right time. So, it's just trusting him in the right time.
I think it's quote of the day. I don't know which one of you said it, but it's just because it's a good idea, it doesn't mean that it's God's idea. And I sort of like that there. So because almost sometimes you can just sort of got this idea, I'm just going to jump the gun and we're just going to go for it because it's a great idea. I mean, on paper it just makes so much sense.
Exactly.
It's like what I say to James all the time. Communism on paper makes so much sense, but in practice, it's garbage. That's it. Do you know what I mean? It's the fact that,
I'm sorry, all the sociology stats we have, no, fair enough. Like, on paper.
But the thing is, right, like sometimes we can have all these ideas like move here, go here, do this. As you say, there's an internship, there's a job here, whatever. It makes sense on paper, but it's just not what God wants you to do. But then it's just saying, okay, I'm just going to trust I'm going to hear what the Lord wants to say. I'm going to trust my leaders and submit to them and let them speak into my life. And then sort of talk to them about what God's speaking to me about, what God's speaking to them about, come together, bing, bang, bosh, happy days in the end. And then you look back now, you go, even though, like sometimes it was really hard and sometimes it was just a tough and annoying, like you've learned so many lessons coming out of that. that you're living by now. So yeah.
Yeah, but also like have good ideas. Like
Yeah.
go away and pray, but just have an open discussion. I always find it's different when if someone. So as I'm discipling, because I'm called to disciple. It's not just elders and leaders. Like every single person should be discipling someone if you're a Christian, and to find someone that you like to disciple. And when they come with good ideas, just listen to them and just hear them out, and so you can talk to them and just have a good idea and just chat it over and just encourage them and just ask them what God wants them to do. And yeah, it's just organic. And if you've got a good relationship, then you can have some input into that. But if you're not friends with someone and you're trying to lead them, and you don't have that relationship, it just doesn't work out. And that's the biggest crux of it, really.
So good. I think that is a perfect place for us to end today. I was going to ask you what's your final thought, but then you just summarized everything. It's absolutely beautiful.
Do what God calls you to do.
Nice.
So thank you so much, James, for joining us.
Thanks, James.
And been a great guest, taking some absolute nuggets. And obviously we'll be seeing you sometime soon with your wife, which will be good. As always, guys, if you're watching this live or afterwards and you have any further questions for James, feel free to send us a message or comment on this stream, and we'll pass it on to James, and he will pass on his answer back to you. Gotta keep it all safe.
Fellas.
So that's it. We'll be back again. Oh, Eamon.
We're not here next week.
We're not.
Huh?
Oh yeah. No, right.
Yeah.
We have so next week there's been because we're having a evangelistic virtual event thing called My Story, the event. And it'll be taking place 7 o'clock till about 7:45, 8 o'clock. It'll be great. There'll be fun. There'll be some awesome stories. There'll be some music performed. It'll be awesome.
Nice.
So if you're watching this, invite someone to this event. This is like, we're going to be able to pray for people, and also for anything that needs a bit more prayer. We're going to even have Zoom breakouts where you can get specific ministry between two people. And so I want to encourage you to do that. We've seen some awesome testimonies and of what God's done by praying for people, even during this time. So if you have a need, or if you know someone who has a need, invite them to My Story, the event, which we'll share on our page. It's on All Nations Church Oldham. But that is why there's no What's the Word next week. But we'll be back the week after. So good job. I literally almost forgot about that. So great. That's everything, I believe.
Yeah.
Great. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks, I guess, isn't it? No, next week. Tune in for my